Hi there, General Class and Grandfathered Advanced Class Operators. This is Gordon West, WB6NOA, and welcome to Extra Class Element 4 Test Preparation Study Class. This audio course covers the new 2002 through 2006 Extra Class 800-plus question test pool, preparing you for your upcoming 50-question Extra Class examination. We'll have fun exploring the airwaves with my audio course, and we parallel my exclusive Extra Class book throughout the entire question pool. And I'll be right here to explain easy hints on how to pass the test and be a great Extra Class operator on the air. Ready to get started? Let's head for the top, Extra Class. The Amateur Extra Class license is the highest level Federal Communications Commission license that an amateur radio operator may hold. This audio course covers license preparation for the July 2002 through July 2006 Extra Class Element 4 examination. And achieving the Extra Class license immediately opens up additional subbands for you to operate voice, as well as additional subbands on worldwide frequencies for, that's right, CW. Your Extra Class license also gives you full operating privileges across the complete spectrum of every ham band, and it also allows you to test for all levels of amateur radio licensing. There is no longer a 20-word per minute Morse code test required for Extra. Passing that original 5-word a minute code test is credit for CW, for Extra. To test for Extra, you must hold either the General Class license or the Advanced Class license that is now grandfathered. So, are you a General? That's great. Or an Advanced Class operator? That's even better yet, because Advanced Class operators, many of the new Extra Class test questions aren't really new. They're taken from the old Advanced Class exam. Well, what do you say we get started in preparing with this audio course for you to get set to take that Extra Class theory test? 50 questions on your examination out of a pool of about 800-plus test questions. You're going to find we're going to have some great ways to memorize this pool on this audio course. So sit back and relax. You might take some notes unless you're driving. And here we go in preparation for the highest amateur radio license, the Amateur Radio Extra Class Test Element 4. One of the fascinating things about our audio course is we're going to be able to play you many of the sounds behind Extra Class frequencies and high-frequency operating. And when you get through with this audio course, you're going to be able to recognize many new sounds that you've never heard before on the airwaves. But going along with this audio course is my exclusive Gordon West Extra Class book. You'll need the book, if possible, to look up some of those questions where we look at how to solve the problems. Now, you can get by without the book, but you really should have it. That way we can describe in detail how to solve some of the problems nice and easy. My book is valid July 1, 2002, all the way through June 30, 2006. That's the Gordon West Element 4 Extra Class book. Now, I know, you're going to look at the book and you're going to go, oh my gosh, 801 questions? I'm overwhelmed. Now remember, only 50 questions on the test. They have to be identical to what we're going to cover on this audio course. No changing of any words at all on the 801 questions. Even the A, B, C, D answers will be identical. And all you need to do is get more than 37 out of 50 correct on the test. That's 74%, and you pass. And the questions are in sub-element groups. There are 117 questions, 7 on the test on rules and regulations, about 67 questions, 5 on the test on operating procedure, radio wave propagation, 3 test questions out of 37 we'll study, amateur practices, 79 questions we'll study, 5 on the test, electrical principles, oh my gosh, amps and volts and watts, a little rusty on that? Not to worry, only 9 test questions out of a pool of 140. Circuit components, 5 questions on the test out of a pool of 87. Practical circuits, 7 on the test out of a pool of 109, and we'll cover all those 109 questions. Signals and emissions, 4 test questions out of a pool of 73. Finally, antennas and feed lines, 94 in the pool, 5 on the test. In this audio course, as well as my exclusive extra class book, covers each and every of the 801 questions. Wow, listen to that operator really zipping along with some fast CW. And that's where we're going to start right now, is at the bottom of each of the ham bands. And we're going to take a look at the very first question on your extra class test. Question that is marked E1A01. Now, this is important to look at the question numbers. The E1A01, the E means it's an extra class question. 1 means that it comes out of the sub-element rules and regulations. A is the topic, this dealing with band limits for the extra operator. And the O1, that's very important because out of each topic, there may be a minimum of 11 all the way up to a maximum of 22 or 23 questions. And the most you'll ever get on your upcoming examination is only 1 question on the test out of each topic. So if we get to a tough topic that, oh my gosh, I'll never remember this, don't worry about it because only 1 question on your upcoming extra class test will come out of that topic. Well, we begin at the bottom of the 80-meter ham band, and we're tuned in now to a station doing some CW operating. And the question is, what exclusive frequency privileges in the 80-meter band are authorized to the amateur extra class control operator? You need to remember on 80 meters, 3500 to 3525. Now, what about voice for the extra class operators? Exclusive voice is at the top of the 80-meter band, which turns into be 75 meters. And the exclusive operating area for the extra class operator on 75 meters is, that's right, 3750 to 3775. Well, let's change and come up here to the 40-meter band. And yep, just like 80 meters, a little bit noisy down here at the bottom of the band. On 40 meters, the area exclusively for the extra class operator, bottom 25 kilohertz, 7,000 to 7025 kilohertz. Well, let's go up to 20 meters, see what's happening on 20 meters now. Wow, it sounds like a pileup, doesn't it? On the 20-meter band for the extra class operator, we have 2 areas of exclusive operating. One is 14,000 to 14,025 kilohertz, but they listed on the test in megahertz, so it's 14.000 to 14.025 megahertz, and 14,150 to 14,175 megahertz. And I really should say 14.000 rather than O, shouldn't I? Okay, here we go. So the bottom 25 kilohertz for the 20-meter band, and then for voice, 14,150 to 14,175. Well, why don't we go up to 15 meters and see where the exclusive area for extra class is up there. 15 meters, here we go. Well, that operator's having a great time on 15. The 15-meter band areas exclusive for extra, 2 of them, 1 for CW and 1 for voice, 21.000 to 21.025. There it is, the bottom 25 kilohertz of the band. And for voice, 21,200 to 21,225 kilohertz. That's for the 15-meter band. So they asked the question, E1A06, which frequency bands contain at least 1 segment for the extra class operator and only for the extra? Do you know them? That's right, 80 meters, 75, 40, 20, and 15. Have that memorized for the test. 1 area on each band for the extra to operate for CW, and another area possibly for voice would be on 80 meters, 75 meters, which is really the same band, 40 meters, 20 meters, and 15. Up on 10 meters, nope, everybody gets everything there with the right license. And on 160 meters, nope, that's not any exclusive area for the extra. So again, 80, 75, 40, 20, and 15 meters, exclusive areas within those bands for the extra class operator. And within the 20-meter band, what is the amount of spectrum authorized to only control operators holding the extra? Well, now think about this, 20 meters. Remember that? 20 meters. 25 kilohertz at the bottom of the band, plus 25 kilohertz on the voice portion of the band. So it's a total of 50 kilohertz on the 20-meter band. Okay, last question on all these bands and things, E1A08. Which bands contain 2 segments authorized to only control ops holding the extra? Now think about it, 2 segments. Well, that would be the 80 and 75 meter band. Yep, one at the bottom and one in the middle for voice. 20 meter band, one in the bottom and one in the middle. And the 15 meter band. Be careful, 40 meters only has 1 segment for the extra class operator. That's 7.000 to 7.025. 40 meters does not have an exclusive area for the extra class operator for voice. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're scratching your head going, wait a minute, on 40 meters, there's something for extra in the voice portion of the band. Well, remember, that is shared with the advanced class operator. They just wanted to know in question E1A08 which bands have areas exclusively for the extra class operator, and that is both voice and CW, and that is 80, 75, 20, and 15. Now, next time you're at a ham fest, pick up one of those Kenwood or ICOM band charts that I have developed for both Kenwood and ICOM. I made those charts up especially to help define the exclusive areas of each band for different operators. And you'll love that chart because it'll show you exactly what is where on the different ham bands. Now, all amateur operators should have a nice, clean signal on the airwaves. And there's a question about that. It says, what must a ham do if the set is causing spurious emissions to create interference to other operators? And the answer is eliminate or reduce the interference. And that means you've got to clean up that transmitter and reduce the spurious emissions. Now, how much spurious emissions can you have on the worldwide bands? Let's say the high-frequency bands when transmitting more than 5 watts of power. Well, the answer is just remember 5 watts, 50 milliwatts. Remember 550. That'll get you through this test question. 5 watts, 50 milliwatts. You must be less than 50 milliwatts, or 40 dB down, with more than 5 watts of power. Now, how about if you're transmitting less than 5 watts of power? Maybe you have one of those new little Yaesu 817 QRP radios. Well, if you're less than 5 watts, you may be 30 dB down below the mean power of the fundamental emission. So less than 5 watts, 30 dB down. More than 5 watts equals how many milliwatts? That's right, 50 milliwatts or 40 dB down. Now, what about the maximum mean power transmitted to any spurious emission if you're up on the VHF bands running more than 25 watts? Well, up on the VHF band, like 2 meters and 6 meters and 220 and 440, up there we must be down 60 dB below the mean power of the fundamental emission. Remember, life begins at 60 when you're up there on VHF and UHF, 60 on VHF and UHF. How about less than 25 watts, like with a handheld on the VHF bands? Well, 25, 25. The lesser of 25 microvolts, or 40 dB below the mean power of the fundamental emission. Now, I know you're going, oh my gosh, I'm out of here. I can't pass this. I'll never remember these. How many test questions can we have out of this one area? Just one. And hopefully they won't be one of these. So 25 microwatts when operating less than 25 watts on the VHF bands. Now, not to worry, there are easier questions coming. Let's take this one. Let's go in and listen to a little bit of packet. The sound's a high-frequency packet. Sounds pretty exciting, huh? Well, if a packet bulletin board station in a message forwarding system accidentally or inadvertently forwards a message that's in violation of the rules, maybe someone trying to sell their old Model A Ford instead of a ham set. Who's accountable for the rules? I mean, you were just being a good guy or girl and adding your packet station up on the air and somebody else sends something through it that's not allowed. Well, here it is, the control operator of the originating station and conditionally the first forwarding station, which means that the station that created this little advertisement for his Model A Ford, remember you can only on amateur radio sell ham radio related items. Here he was trying to do his Model A. Well, anyway, he's going to be held responsible because he's the control operator of the originating station and conditionally the first forwarding station. That's you. So if you're the first one down the line, you and the person that is sending packet through your station or sending a message that you're going to relay, both of you are responsible. So something to think about. Now, if your packet bulletin board station inadvertently forwards the communications that's in violation of the rules, what should you do first? Pull the plug! The first thing is discontinue forwarding the communications as soon as you become aware of it. Yeah, and make a note in your logbook. What in the world's that? That's right in the middle of our 40-meter ham band, huh? Well, that's because different countries have different allocations for some of the ham bands. This one's on 40 meters. Great music, huh? Well, for each ITU region, how is each frequency band allocated internationally to the amateur service designated? Well, they could either be primary service or secondary service. And if that country has ham as secondary and that is primary, that's what you end up with is occasionally shortwave broadcasts on the 40-meter band coming right over your favorite net frequency. So anyway, for that question, E1A16, primary service or secondary. Why might the FCC modify an amateur station license? Which reads, why would the FCC want to yank you off the air? Well, they might do that to promote the public interest, convenience, and necessity. That's a pretty strange word. Well, they may modify an amateur license if, for some reason, as a ham operator, there's a problem to the public or convenience and necessity. So something to think about there. What are the sharing requirements for an amateur station transmitting in the 30-meter band? Remember 30 meters? 30 meters is 10.1 megahertz to 10.150 megahertz, and that is the band that we operate CW as well as data. And the sharing requirements for us is we may not cause harmful interference to stations in the fixed service authorized by other nations. We're sharing this band, so we may not interfere with those other stations. Now, if an amateur station is installed aboard a ship and is separate from the ship's radio installation, what condition must be met before the station may transmit? Well, remember, if you're aboard a ship, you got to report to the captain. The master of the ship is responsible. Its operation must be approved by the master of the ship. All right, let's go to this one. What is the definition of the term telemetry? Well, telemetry is a one-way transmission of measurements at a distance from the measuring instrument. Wow, what are they talking about there? Telemetry is how we monitor satellites. All of the ham sats up there, one-way transmission of measurements at a distance from the measuring instrument. Satellites will send down telemetry. What's the definition of telecommand? Well, telecommand, when we use that with the satellites, is a one-way transmission to initiate, modify, or terminate functions of a device at a distance. And you can read that at a distance, meaning usually satellites. So an operation of telecommand means that here's a station that can turn on or turn off something aboard the satellite. Telemetry is what the satellite sends down as a measurement of something on board. Oh, so you want to hear some telemetry. Well, let me tune into a satellite, and here is what telemetry sounds like from one of our amateur radio orbiting satellites. Is that great, huh? Now, do you hear it sort of fading in and out? And that's because the satellite on purpose is tumbling in space to keep it cool on all sides. Well, now let's take a look at this question. When an amateur station transmits special codes, may they actually obscure the meaning of a message by these codes? And the answer is, well, no, they can't do that. Well, the answer is they may when sending telecommand messages to a station in space operation. So it is okay for an AMSAT authorized control station working with a satellite to send special codes. That was question E1A22. Now, how many total questions could we have of this one area, A01 to A22? Just one on your upcoming test. Now we go to E1B01, talking about station restrictions. Which of the following factors might restrict the physical location of a ham station and the antenna structure? Well, the land that you're going to stick your brand new station on might have environmental importance. I mean, it could be an Indian burial ground, or it is significant in American history, architecture, or culture. So check that out before you put your new ham station on that brand new lot that you just bought. Outside of what distance from an FCC monitoring facility may a ham station be located? Well, you can't get any closer than 1 mile. 1 mile, not 3, not 10, not 30, but 1 mile. And what must be done before an amateur station is placed within an officially designated wilderness area, or a wildlife preserve, or an area listed in the National Register of Historical Places, like my place right here? Well, you must have an environmental assessment, and that must be submitted to, that's right, the FCC. All right, our next question, E1B04. You passed your extra, you're on the air, but unfortunately you're causing interference to the reception of a local AM or FM broadcast station where your neighbor's got a good receiver. It has good engineering design, and you're still swamping the receiver. What frequencies may the operation of your ham station be restricted to by the FCC if you're causing problems to somebody else's receiver that really is a good receiver? Well, they could restrict you to the frequency or frequencies that you are operating on when the interference occurs. So get along with your neighbor, okay? When an amateur station operator accepts compensation for serving as the control operator of an amateur station, may they do so, let's say, in the classroom? And that's what I do, yep. And the answer is only when the amateur operator is paid as an incident of a teaching position during periods of time when the station is used by that teacher as part of the classroom instruction at an educational institution. Whew, what a long answer, but then it is okay to get paid to be the control operator of an amateur station. But you're really being paid as an incident part of your teaching position. Who may accept compensation for serving as a control op in a classroom at an educational institution? And the answer is only an amateur operator accepting such pay as an incident of a teaching position. Those are the key words to look for to get this question correct on your test. Incident of a teaching position during times when the station is used by that teacher as part of classroom instruction. Incident of a teaching position. All right. If an amateur antenna structure is located in a valley or canyon, what height restriction applies? I mean, can you go as tall as the nearby hill? Nope, that's not right. The structure must be no higher than 200 feet above the ground level at the site. Not of the nearby mountains, but the highest you can go, even though you're in the bottom of the valley, is just 200 feet up from deck level. Now, here's a controversial question. Question E1B08. What limits must local authorities observe when they go out there legislating how high and what we can do with an amateur antenna in our local neighborhood? Well, the answer says such regulations imposed by your local community group must reasonably accommodate amateur service communications and must constitute the minimum practical regulation to accomplish the state or local authority's legitimate purpose. Wow. What does that mean? Well, it means that they must allow you to put up a minimum of an antenna, but such regulations must reasonably accommodate. Those are the key words to look for to get this test question correct. Reasonably accommodate the amateur service communications. All right, well, something to think about. Now, the bad problem is when you have signed a little line on your homeowner's lease saying that you won't put an antenna on the roof, now you've signed no antenna. Now, if you're installing an amateur radio station antenna at a site within 5 miles from an airport, what additional rules apply? 5 miles. Well, you must evaluate the height of your antenna, and you base that on FCC part, remember the part number? That's right, 17. Part 17 contains evaluations of height and how close you can be next to an airport if within 5 miles.
Our Activity Systems Officer, Dina Barclay, continues to...
Wow, this is pretty neat. We've tuned into the International Space Station, and one of the local repeater stations is retransmitting, with FCC permission, the audio
into this EVA.
Now, one of the questions on the exam reads, what is meant by a remotely controlled station, such as this repeater that is under remote control that is retransmitting the space station audio? The answer is a remotely controlled station is a station controlled indirectly through, near the keywords, a control link. Which of the following amateur stations may not be operated under automatic control? Well, we know that a repeater could, auxiliary may, beacon may be under automatic control, but the remote control of model aircraft is not allowed under automatic control. And what is meant by automatic control of a station? And that is the use of devices and procedures, keywords, devices and procedures, the only answer with those words in them, devices and procedures for control, so that the control operator does not have to be present at the control point. And how do the control operator responsibilities of a station under automatic control differ from one under, let's say, local control? Well, the answer is under automatic control, the control operator is not required to be present at the control point. Well, how are they going to control it? Well, the answer is a control link. That's a means of control between a control point and a remotely controlled station, such as this repeater that is tied into the International Space Station.
Again, these umbilical trays contain power, data, and...
What is the term for apparatus to effect remote control between the control point and a remotely controlled station? Well, that is the good old control link. And that's what's keeping this repeater on the air.
To travel between the truss structure and the rest of the space station.
You might have been coming off at an angle, Vander. Oh, about 90 feet across the water.
Wow, 6-element mono bander, 90 feet above the water. That's a great station. Well, let's take a look at reciprocal operating, E1C area of our rules and regulations. E1C01. What is an FCC authorization for an alien reciprocal operation license? Well, an FCC authorization to the holder of an amateur license issued by a certain foreign government is what we call an alien reciprocal operation. And that allows them to operate an amateur station in the United States. Now, who's authorized for alien reciprocal operation in places where the FCC regulates the service, in other words, our country? Any non-U.S. citizen. Now, that's very important. Any non-U.S. citizen, but the answer goes on, holding an amateur service license issued by their government, which the U.S. has a reciprocal operating arrangement. What are the frequency privileges authorized for alien reciprocal operation? Well, those authorized by the alien by his or her country of citizenship, but not to exceed those authorized to amateur extra class operators. In other words, they cannot come here and operate on bands beyond what we have allowable operation on. What indicator must a Canadian amateur station include with the assigned call sign when they're on the air operating in the United States? Well, the letter number indicating the station location after the Canadian call sign and the closest city and state once during the communications. So it could be VE7ABC Portable W9 near Chicago, Illinois. There you go. When may a U.S. citizen holding a foreign amateur service license be authorized for alien reciprocal operation in places where the FCC regulates the service? The answer is, now think about that, U.S. citizen. Maybe you have a French call sign as well. The answer is no. You cannot use that here in the United States. Never. U.S. citizens are not eligible for alien reciprocal operation here in the United States. Which of the following would disqualify a foreign amateur operator from being authorized for alien reciprocal operation in places where the FCC regulates the amateur service? Well, something that would disqualify them would be not being a citizen of the country that issued the amateur service license. What special document is required before a Canadian citizen holding a Canadian amateur service license may obtain a reciprocal license? The good news is, for Canadians, no special document is required. So all you VEs, come on down and have fun. Just be sure and bring a copy of your license, but no special document required. What operating privileges does a properly licensed alien amateur have in the United States if the U.S. and the alien amateur's home country have a multilateral or bilateral reciprocal operating agreement? Well, the answer is those privileges are those authorized by their home license and not exceeding the operating privileges of our good old amateur extra class operator license. We've had that question before. From which locations may a licensed amateur alien operator be the control operator of an amateur station? Could be any location where the amateur service is regulated by the FCC. That is permitted. Now, here's a good one. CEPT, European Conference of Postal and Telecommunications Administrations. Which of the following operation arrangements allow an FCC licensed U.S. citizen to operate in Europe as an alien amateur from many European countries to operate in the United States? That agreement is the CEPT agreement. No more reciprocal paperwork. But before leaving for Europe, make sure that you obtain a copy of FCC Public Notice DA 99-1098 that was released in 1999, along with the original and copies of your U.S. license. Wow, is that good news? And all the places that you can go without having to have any special reciprocal operating permit is found on page 32 of my textbook, from Austria, Belgium, Bosnia, all the way down to United Kingdom and its possessions. Gee, there's probably about 30 different countries. Wow, no more lengthy paperwork when you go to Europe. Wow, that's good news. Which of the following multilateral or bilateral operating arrangements allow a FCC licensed U.S. citizen and many Central and South American amateurs to operate in each other's country? Well, for South America, that is not the CEPT. No, CEPT. Think of the E for Europe. South America, it is the IARP, International Amateur Radio Permit. And that's good in Argentina, Brazil, Peru, Uruguay, and Venezuela. The IARP agreement. So remember, don't get these mixed up because they've got the other answer waiting for you to incorrectly go for on the exam. CEPT is for Europe and IARP agreement for South America. And here we go. What additional station ID, in addition to your own call sign, to their own call sign, does an alien operator use when operating in the United States? All right, now be careful of this answer. Canada, remember it's a Canadian call sign first, and then the W9 near Chicago. Well, in this case, for an alien reciprocal operation, it's the letter numeral indicating the station's location first, before their call sign and the closest city and state given once during the communications. Wow. So don't get this one mixed up. The letter numeral indicating the station location in the United States included before their call sign and the closest city and state given once during the communication. So that's a little different than which Canada is the other way around.
KD6MVD for a damage report on a freeway.
Races.
VD, go ahead with the damage report on freeway.
Roger, 4 miles north of Devonshire on the 405. There's quite a bit of buckling in 2 different places and a lot of concrete up, so you got to go through there real slow.
Well, the Radio Amateur Civil Emergency Service, called RACES, is called into action many times there are major disasters throughout the country. And question E1D01 asks, what is the Radio Amateur Civil Emergency Service, RACES? And that is a radio service using amateur stations for civil defense communications during periods of local, regional, or national civil emergencies. And as you just heard, there was a local emergency of a major earthquake where RACES will many times provide civil defense communications during these emergencies.
The whole building collapsed. That was the front window that was shattered, and the citizens that was inside said it was fine at this time. We had noise of glass broken throughout the city.
So in an emergency, RACES units will many times activate to handle those emergency calls. Now remember, on your upcoming extra class examination, every time you see the word RACES, be sure and look for the answer that says a civil defense organization or provide civil defense. They'll always have the words civil defense as your only words in the correct answer for any question on your extra test doing with RACES. RACES, all amateur service frequencies otherwise authorized to the control operator, are available for RACES operation. And for RACES, specific segments in the amateur medium frequency, high frequency, very high frequency, and UHF bands may be allocated to RACES units during a period when the President's war emergency powers are in force. So the frequencies normally available for RACES are all frequencies authorized by the amateur service. And what type of emergency can cause limits to be placed on the frequencies available for RACES operations? Well, in an emergency, any emergency during which the President's war emergency powers are invoked. And who may be the control operator of a RACES station? Anyone who holds an FCC-issued amateur operator license and is certified by a what organization? That's right, Civil Defense Organization.
Boy, this is the strongest one I felt here for years.
Earthquakes.
West, but some vertical motion. There was 2 peaks, a little bit at first, then a big peak, and then it almost died down, then it hit us harder for the second time.
Well, out here on the West Coast, we get a lot of earthquakes, and we have a lot of RACES participation. With which stations may amateur stations participating in RACES communicate? Well, that is amateur stations participating in RACES and specific other stations authorized by the responsible civil defense official. Those are the ones that will participate with RACES communications. And what communications are permissible in RACES? National defense or immediate safety of people and property, and communications authorized by the area civil defense organization. So again, look for that word civil defense and immediate safety of people and property. Listen to this traffic report after a major earthquake from a RACES station in Southern California. See if you can understand what the mobile operator is saying.
Freeway 10, and what section?
Now listen.
That will be eastbound and westbound near Washington. The bridges are down.
Did you get that? That's right. The mobile RACES unit is saying the bridges are down. That's a major traffic report. So keep in mind that you'll have probably 11 questions total in the pool, of which 1 for sure will be on races. Now, I know your brain is probably swelling with all of these questions we've been going over, and we'll get a break in just about 6 minutes from now. But before we do, what do you say we head off into space? Okay, ready? Let's take off into outer space.
Now we call CQ, calling CQ other stations in North America and Mexico for about the next minute and a half. W5 Lima, Foxtrot Lima will be tuning the band for your calls. Come in, please.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. I wonder where he is.
Foxtrot Lima is returning your signals, returning your calls. W5 Lima, Foxtrot Lima in the spacecraft Columbia, returning your calls. And now I'll call CQ for other stations in North America. Calling CQ other stations, W5 Lima, Foxtrot Lima, spacecraft Columbia will be listening for a minute and a half to log all your other call times. Please come in.
Wow, that's pretty neat. A spacecraft with astronauts that are ham radio operators talking to us down here from up there. Well, let's take a look at some questions in the E1, E01 area, of which one question will be on your examination regarding satellites and the space station and the space shuttle. And there's a total of 15 questions, of which one will be on your test. What is the amateur satellite service? Well, that is a service using amateur stations on satellites, including the space shuttle and the International Space Station, for the purpose of self-training, intercommunication, and technical investigation. What is a space station in the amateur satellite service? Well, that's any station located more than 50 kilometers above the Earth's surface. What is a telecommand station in the amateur satellite service? Now, remember telecommand? We've had that before. That's an amateur station that transmits communications to initiate, modify, or terminate functions of a space station. And what's an Earth station in the ham satellite service? Well, an Earth station is an amateur station within 50 kilometers of the Earth's surface for communications with amateur stations by means of objects in space. E1, E05, which of the following types of communications may space stations transmit? And the answer is all, meaning automatic transmissions of signals from Earth stations and other space stations like a repeater. Stations in space may transmit one-way communications, and stations in space may transmit telemetry consisting of specially coded messages. And what amateur stations are eligible to operate up there in space? Good news, any FCC licensed amateur station. And what special provisions must a space station incorporate in order to comply with space station requirements? Well, better have a spacesuit for number one, and the space station must be capable of effecting a cessation of transmissions. In other words, stop transmitting by telecommand whenever so ordered by the FCC. And when must the licensee of a space station give the FCC International Bureau the first written pre-space notification? Well, if you're going up into space, you must let the FCC's International Bureau know that you're up there no less than 27 months prior to initiating space station transmissions. 27 months. Other answers are like 3 and 12 months or no time limit. The answer, and the correct answer, is 27 months. And in my exclusive Gordon West Extra Class Theory book, we have a little box item showing how to join AMSAT. And AMSAT is the amateur radio organization that helps keep these satellites up there in orbit. We hope you'll join AMSAT. Question E1, E09. What amateur service HF bands? Now remember, HF is 3 megahertz to 30. HF, 3 to 30. What HF bands have frequencies authorized to space stations? Well, by international agreement, the HF bands for space station operation are 40 meters, 20 meters, 17 meters, 15 meters, 12 meters, and 10 meters. Be careful, there's an answer that says all bands. Nope, that is not correct. Again, one of the answers leaves out the 12-meter band, and that's not correct. So watch out for this question: 40, 20, 17, 15, 12, and 10 meters. Then they ask the question, which VHF, now that's 30 to 300 megahertz, has bands for the space station? Now, on VHF, we have the 2-meter band, and the 2-meter band is a fun one. That's where I made contact with W5LFL on his first on-the-air revolution around the world.
William Bravo 6 Nancy Ocean America. William Bravo 6 Nancy Ocean America. This is W5 Lima Foxtrot Lima returning your call along with several other stations.
Oh, that was a great day when I made that first contact. Now on UHF, the UHF has frequencies available at 70 centimeters, 23 centimeters, and 13 centimeters. So you'll probably, or maybe will get one of those questions. HF, 40, 20, 17, 15, 12, and 10. VHF, 2 meters. UHF, 70 centimeters, 23 centimeters, and 13 centimeters. Now, for those of us down here on Earth, they ask which amateur stations are eligible to be a telecommand station. That's any amateur station so designated by the space station licensee. And what unique privileges is afforded to a telecommand station? Oh, a bunch. A telecommand station may transmit command messages to the space station using codes intended, and that they may obscure the meaning by anyone else just eavesdropping in. So yes, there, secret codes are allowed. What's the term for space-to-Earth transmission used to communicate the results of measurements by a space station? Well, remember, measurements, that is telemetry. And finally, which amateur stations are eligible to operate as Earth stations? Hey, that's you and me.
Ocean America.
Ocean America, Ocean America. You're loud and clear aboard Atlanta, sir. Say your full call sign, please, over.
This is your instructor, Gordon West, Whiskey Bravo 6, Nancy Ocean America. Good job. Keep up the good work.
Hey, Gordon, great talking to you. I've gotten a little better at mastering these follow-ups because there's sure been some big ones.
Oh, that was great. One of my students turned out to be an astronautess, a lady astronaut, and there we were working her in space. Well, which amateur stations are eligible to operate as an Earth station? Any amateur station subject to the privileges of the class of operator license held by the control operator, which means technician class up. So for those of you going for the extra class license, you've got it made as an Earth station. All right, all you Earth stations, time to take a break. Now, if you're listening to us on audio cassette tape, then turn the tape over. And for the rest of you, take a nice, well-deserved break, and we'll meet you back here in just a few minutes. See you in a few.